With so many podcasts out there, shows can get lost in the shuffle. That's why we implore you to check out Too Many Captains. You can find us at amoviepodcast.com.
5 unique takes on Hollywood movies and culture. Find us on Twitter at It's a Film Podcast.
Check our intellectual deep dives into theatrical films. Find us on Instagram at Too Many Captains Productions.
Unique takes on soundtracks. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Too Many Captains Productions.
Find us at amoviepodcast.com on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. And now, here comes a new episode of Collateral Cinema.
I'm Beau Maddox.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
This is Collateral Cinema.
Welcome to Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters, where we focus on good movies, bad movies, and everything else in between in the world of cinema. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it.
Yes, indeed, friends. Smoke it if you've got it. Especially since we're taking our first foray into a very well-known franchise, a very successful, well-selling franchise, the Harry Potterverse, right?
Yep, that's right. This is dipping our toes into the Wizarding World franchise and specifically the Harry Potter film series because, we don't even really need to talk about Fantastic Beasts, do we?
No, we don't need to talk about that at all. Come on now.
They're all right, but the Harry Potter film series is what I grew up with. I was a Harry Potter kid growing up, so just coming into this, okay? And before we go any further, we don't condone any of the transphobic comments that J.K. Rowling, we don't necessarily agree with the views of the author. We just happen to enjoy her work, or an adaptation of her work in this case.
Precisely. I have, seen quite a few of her tweets. They're not cool at all. I don't particularly care to check her out on Twitter or anything, but yeah, good on her for making Harry Potter, I guess, but, fuck you for everything else.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too political, but, there is, when all of your co-stars, or the stars of the franchise, who consider you a friend are kind of like acknowledging, hey, we shouldn't be making these kinds of comments. But that's neither here nor there. We're not going to get any more into that. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, that's the most that I'm going to get into it as well. I've said my piece, so yeah, let's get on with the show, so to speak, right?
Exactly. So we are talking about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I think is one of the most uniquely directed movies. Well, probably the most uniquely directorial style.
It certainly is. Especially from just that first scene in the kitchen, with his surrogate family. His so-called, step aunt is just berating him, just to his face, treating him like shit. And he finally just lets his facade just go, and he's finally just like, oh no, you're talking to Wizard Harry now. And she's straight up talking shit about his mom and his dad.
Yeah, no, for real. Fuck the Dursleys and fuck Aunt Marge.
Oh, all the way. Fuck her. She gets her comeuppance. Honestly, I think it's too good for her.
Honestly, yeah. Her memory is even erased of the event. So, did she really learn anything? Probably not.
Not at all. No. She didn't learn a goddamn thing.
But props to Harry for standing up to himself. That's what I like better about this movie and the mood that is set in the succeeding films. So, after the first two films that were directed by Chris Columbus, Alphonso Cuaron decides to come on board for Prisoner of Azkaban. And it's the only film in the series he did. It was just kind of a one-and-done thing. And I feel in a lot of ways he set the more mature tone that the series would take.
Certainly. I mean, this is arguably a darker film than the first couple of movies. This is the third movie, right? By the way.
Yes, this is year 3.
Right on. And I kind of feel like, this is the first time that we finally see the three main characters kind of interacting in a more mature manner with each other. They don't seem like very pie-eyed or anything. It looks like they've actually been through some shit here now,
Yeah, because in the first 2 films, the main leads, Rupert Grint, Daniel Radcliffe, and Emma Watson, were kind of just child actors. And in this film, I feel that they've really grown into the role of an actor and grown into the roles of their characters. They're more comfortable and confident with their dialogue, and the chemistry really shows on screen.
Certainly. I think that even, especially Hermione. I'm sorry, I've always had a trouble saying her name for some reason. But Hermione, I mean, she's a lot more, upfront this time. She's more assertive. I mean, she's actually starting to be a little smarter when it comes to using magic to kind of, circumvent like certain things at the school, like using the time travel.
Yeah,
shit.
she's a feminist icon,
Totally.
She's a character that isn't just known for being the girl of the group. I mean, she has her own personality that's based off of traits that are unique to her as a person. And she's a strong character.
Certainly. I mean, like what she does to Malfoy at what was that creature that was going to be executed? Buckbeak. Yeah, I mean, she straight up just comes at him with her wand open. Like, if this was a gun, she straight up just pulled a fucking strap on him and just put it straight in his fucking face and said, "What, motherfucker? What?"
And he's a pussy about it. I mean,
a total pussy about it. Are you kidding me?
And then she punches him, after Ron's like, "No, he's not worth it." Yeah, so after Ron's like, "Oh, he's not worth it," then she just pulls away her wand and she punches him instead. And that was an addition by Cuaron. That wasn't in the book. So here, I'm a book reader. I read all the books when I was growing up. It's been a while, so I'll be fuzzy on some of the details that weren't featured in the film. But I mean, I've watched the Harry Potter films many times over, and I did originally read the books back in like my elementary, middle school years.
Yeah, much like the MCU and the DCEU, I'm very much a casual observer of this franchise, more or less. I mean, I will say this. My very first date that I ever went on was at the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, right?
Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone.
Originally Philosopher's Stone. Don't know why they changed that, but, whatever.
Because I guess the connotation of philosopher is different in American culture, but the Philosopher's Stone is a thing. Yeah,
it's a fabled, like, element or something, or some type of... something that has to do with alchemy.
And it requires the human souls.
Oh, yeah, it requires an entire city of human souls to make, by the way.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, I mean, by the way, I just want to say right now that Shao Tucker did nothing wrong.
No! Fuck you!
Yeah, Shao Tucker did nothing wrong. He was a consummate scientist, but I digress.
Okay, Edgelord.
Yeah, I'm that asshole that shares those stupid Full Metal Alchemist memes.
It's like Thanos did nothing wrong, or the Empire did nothing wrong.
Yeah, but Shao Tucker did nothing wrong. No. Anyway,
so this, of course, like we said before, is the third film directed by Alphonso Cuaron. He's well known for Gravity in 2013 and also Roma in 2018.
I've heard a lot about Gravity. That was with Sandra Bullock in it, right?
And George Clooney.
Yeah, that's a fantastic casting right there. But, I mean, this is really one of the main movies of his that I've seen, and it is impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Very impressive in scope. It's impressive in its cinematography. It's impressive in just the way that he uses his shots to show detail.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was fascinating to watch here. This is actually a very cinematically appealing movie.
It is. And it's the first Harry Potter film that I feel really takes itself seriously. And really, like, some of those shots are just gorgeous. The Hogwarts landscape, the visual effects still hold up, and this movie was in 2006. The book was written in 1999.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a mix of CGI and some practical effects here. Like those books that they give them, the textbooks.
The Monster Book of Monsters.
The Monster Book of Monsters. I mean, that is straight up like almost like the Necronomicon. I mean, shit. But I mean, those were practical effects, and that was actually very Raimi-esque in a way.
Yeah, it is. And this movie has a couple of those campy feels, like that in shot on the firebolt and the blur face.
Yeah.
And Harry's
that was awesome.
That was just fucking awesome. I had to just clap. I mean,
yeah, it was. Honestly. Like, that whole sequence where he took the bus near the beginning of the movie was really, really interesting.
It sets the tone,
I mean,
and there's quite a bit of comic relief in that scene that wasn't in the original book. So that's actually an excellent scene to point out, where Cuaron adds all this detail into the world. In fact, I pointed this out to you when we were watching it, but if you pay attention to the movie, there is something constantly happening on screen. You'll see all these little magical details. I mean, just in the leaky cauldron scene alone.
Oh, that was amazing, especially with like the way that the waiters were clearing the tables. Like, they were using like pretty much almost like sleight of hand magic tricks, what we would say, but I mean, of course, that's Wizarding World, so it's real magic.
And it's all done in one take, and it just kind of pans across it. These are things that are going on in the background that you're not necessarily focused on, but you know, when you're paying attention, it really enriches the magical feeling of the movie. And so it very much picks up the essence of the novels.
Yeah, and I especially like the way that Cuaron really portrayed Hogwarts itself. The way that he staged his shots and the way that he actually presented the scope of, you know, the setting itself. I mean, it added a different character to it, I thought. Like, for instance, the Grand Hall, or whatever it's called.
The Great Hall.
The Great Hall. It's like, I mean, that to me had a different feel to it, you know? Like, and especially his decision to have Harry Potter go out into the corridors alone at night with no lighting other than the wands.
Yeah.
Like, that was actually very brilliant, I thought. I mean, the only lighting you're getting is from this, you know, CGI effect. I mean, they were obviously holding some type of LED beacon to give themselves lighting, but that was really brilliant. There wasn't anything else that was lighting that set at all.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the lighting overall in the film and the way that they used the effects to enhance the magical feeling of the scene. I mean, having the entire scene lit by wand light, it really sets in that this is a Harry Potter film, and that's something that I've always really respected about the Harry Potter franchise and all of the lore that Rowling put into it. Because, I mean, again, not necessarily condoning of her as a person, but I think that she's an intellectual person, a smart person who crafted a really, really good story. I just wish she used her platform for better things.
Obviously, yeah. But, I mean, yeah, the story itself, I mean,
there's so much put into it.
There's a lot put into it, especially with this particular movie, especially, you know, how it all relates to Harry in the end.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, the people who you think are the antagonists are really not so much in the end, you know.
Sirius Black, yeah, played by Gary Oldman. And
oh man, Gary Oldman is so amazing, and we featured him before in The Fifth Element.
Yeah,
we did that episode, I think last season.
And by the way, this was the first time he had filmed anything in years.
Man, what a thing to come back to, the best goddamn Harry Potter movie in the entire franchise, next to the last two movies. I mean,
those are my favorites between the last two movies and this one. And I think just based on preference, I like Deathly Hallows because of the epic scope, the kind of in-gamey feel. But when it comes to the tightest movie and the most quality produced movie, I have to go to Prisoner of Azkaban. It's kind of like the Winter Soldier of the franchise.
Yeah.
If we want to use MCU analogies.
Yeah,
here.
it's the pinnacle of the franchise, definitely. And I mean, you could see Cuaron's like auteur elements just come out like left and right. And I like the scenes that he added to this story. Like, for instance, the scenes in the dorm room with, Weasley and Harry and all the rest of the guys. Like, they're just palling around, just bullshitting, fucking around, being kids.
Boyish charm.
Yeah, boyish charm, to say the least. Of course, I mean, it kind of feels like it has a finality to it because, I mean, these kids are growing up. They're already probably close to 13, 14 years old.
They are 13.
They are 13 here. It's like, it's probably their last chance to really be kids.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, especially considering what later goes on in this world and what they have to deal with the return of Voldemort, who, by the way, is not featured in this film. This is one of the movies or / books where Voldemort doesn't appear. This is number 6. But in any case, I do appreciate those scenes a lot because for added scenes, they don't really drive the plot forward any. They don't really have anything to do with the overall narrative, but they serve to ground us in the film and to explore those interpersonal relationships and emotions of teenagers.
Exactly. And it's just so accurately portrayed in this movie about goddamn wizards and fucking buckbeaks and goddamn fucking trolls and werewolves and boglins or whatever the fuck that thing was that portrayed your inner fears or whatever. The Boggart. Yeah, that was actually pretty clever. It was a clever way to actually kind of introduce, that part of wizarding where you protect yourself from dark arts,
Yes, that's the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, which this year is taught by Professor Lupin. And Remus Lupin, whose name, by the way, foreshadows what he is.
It's almost too on the nose, honestly.
In retrospect, yeah, but when I was a kid reading this, I thought this was genius. How, every little detail in the Harry Potter world, the name of a character or some event that happened that was a literary allusion to mythology or other works, even Shakespearean, was basically like a foreshadowing of what was to come. And so, you would have little hints like that. But in retrospect, it does feel a little on the nose.
Very on the nose. I mean, come on now.
But he's played by David Thewlis, who actually was in Wonder Woman. He played Ares in that movie. And that's the only other thing that I can actually remember him from. But he plays not only the teacher of Defense Against the Dark Arts that year, because every year there's a different Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Yeah, that's almost kind of a theme with this franchise.
It's actually been revealed in universe. I mean, it is actually a curse on the position. Voldemort left a curse on the position.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Tom Riddle cursed the position probably because he couldn't get a position as a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
Wow, no kidding.
So just a little lore point there. But anyway, I'm going to stop geeking out here for a second.
Oh, no, continue. Keep geeking out. I mean, we still have a little bit of time to fill here.
We've got to pad this bullshit, right?
I guess so. I don't know.
No, we've got plenty to talk about. And believe me, I have plenty to talk about because I was obsessed with Harry Potter when I was a kid.
Yeah, tell us a little more about that. What was your reaction when you heard that there were a set of movies coming out?
Well, I actually started reading the books as a result of the movies coming out.
Oh, okay, I see.
So the first time I saw Prisoner of Azkaban, I actually hadn't read the book yet.
Oh.
And in fact, I ended up reading all the books out of order. Because I'd already seen the movies first, so I was like, let me just start at number 4 because I've already watched the first 3 movies. Of course, it's a very different thing. So I did have to go back and read those for additional context. But man, I read through every single Harry Potter book. All I talked about was Harry Potter. I posted about, well, I didn't really have social media back then, but I guess I would draw about it and write about it, and it honestly annoyed the shit out of everyone because growing up as an autistic kid, I actually always had some kind of obsession at a different time in my life.
Yeah.
And so at one point that was Spider-Man, and one point that was Star Trek, and now, at this point in my life, it was Harry Potter. And so I remember watching and rewatching the movies again and again and again, reading through all of the books, waiting in midnight parties for the new books to come out or midnight premieres for the new movies.
Wow, that's hardcore, actually. I mean, I have a feeling that Harry Potter is kind of one of those things that really influenced modern fandom culture, right?
it's a very millennial thing, or at least my sub-generation of the millennial generation, you know? The latter half of it. Because, I mean, we're the generation that may be into naming our kids after Harry Potter characters.
Yeah. I mean, I was like pretty much a little too old for Harry Potter by the time it came out, but when I saw that movies were coming out, I was like, you know what? That makes sense.
Well,
I mean,
the movies and the books grew up with the watchers and the readers.
Yeah.
And that's why there was such a huge tonal shift in this film, for instance. Because by this time, I think maybe the fifth book was out.
Yeah.
I think this would have been sometime after the fifth book came out. And so the books were already more geared towards older readers. And you could tell if you read through the books that they very much grew up with the reader and they got bigger and more complex. And J.K. Rowling improved as a writer.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was a series that very much grew up with you. And so when that had happened in the books already, the movies had to also tonally shift.
Yeah. And honestly, how do you think the movie's tone shifted after this movie? Like, I mean, where did it really go from there, in your opinion?
It kind of continues along the trajectory that Cuaron set. I mean, the movies are definitely darker and more mature from here. And they do get into kind of more of the teenage comedy, you know, or teenage drama.
Yeah, but I kind of wonder, why didn't they just give the rest of the series to Cuaron at that point? Did he just say he didn't want to do another one? I mean, was it just a personal decision on his part?
I think personally, yeah. I think maybe he just wanted to do one movie.
And honestly, why didn't they try to tap Guillermo del Toro?
Dude, that would have been awesome.
That would have been amazing. Del Toro would have been, you know, kind of ready-made for this shit. You know, I mean, I know that he's kind of seen as kind of more of a horror director, but this is the most horror-inflected movie out of the entire franchise.
It does have horror, or at least thriller vibes with the scenes with the Dementors.
Yeah, that's like straight up, I mean, creepy gothic horror almost.
You know, in that one scene where they come on the train and all the ice is building up, and then the hand slowly comes out, and that's all Cuaron. You know, that's not something you can easily as write in a book. I mean, all those visual effects that are going on and the way that you're picturing this, I mean, that's Cuaron's interpretation of what he read. And Steve Kloves as well, who contributed to all but Order of the Phoenix. He wrote the screenplay for every other Harry Potter film. Chris Columbus also stayed on as producer for this movie, even though he wasn't directing it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that happens sometimes, but, you know, what are you going to do?
But... you know, and talking about more about Cuaron for a second here, because he's already come into this film with his own set of credits, and since then has made a name. I mean, his 4 Academy Awards come from Gravity and Roma.
Yeah.
And he's been nominated for 11, I think.
Yeah. And I've been really meaning to check out Roma. I mean, that was released on the Criterion Collection recently, and I heard that it's a really just amazing release. It's incredible, and it's a really, really powerful movie from what I understand, so I really can't wait to check it out. I mean, seeing what I've seen in this movie, I could definitely see myself enjoying that movie.
I think he just likes to do different things.
Yeah, almost kind of like Del Toro a little bit.
Del Toro would have been perfect if they tapped him. I feel like they should have just continued with using different directors. Obviously, the film franchise stands on its own, and I have no problem with all the films after this point. I mean, we got Mike Newell directed Goblet of Fire, which is arguably the worst movie in the film series, but still pretty good. It's just not a very good adaptation of the book. And then the other films, all up until the Fantastic Beasts films, have all been done by David Yates.
And what's your opinion of David Yates as a director? I mean, what does he bring into the franchise?
There's a lot of people in the franchise, in the fandom, and I spend a lot of time on like the shitposting groups for this and some other fandoms. But there's actually a lot of people that don't like the David Yates direction. I have no problem with it. I thought all the movies were solid. Like I said, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2 are probably my favorites out of the film series.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, like I said, and those 2 movies are pretty much my favorite. And they're the ones that I've seen the most of as well.
Yeah.
I actually cannot say I've seen Goblet of Fire.
Goblet of Fire. when it came out, I was all over it. I was obsessed with it. But
Oh, I'd imagine, yeah.
and I remember that was right around the time where I was like peak Harry Potter obsession. Was around the time that movie came out and the 6th book came out.
So that kind of has a really, really kind of personal like connection with you there a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's when you really became aware of it. And I mean, of course, like I said, I was a little too old to really get into Harry Potter like that, at least not at the book level, you know.
Right.
I was a teenager, kind of coming of age at that point, but I mean, I like the trajectory of the franchise. I like the movies themselves, especially the later movies. I mean, they're very watchable. I mean, they're a lot of fun.
And I would counter-argue and say that the books are easily appealable to adults. My mom was reading them at midnight along with me, and she actually finished book 7 before I did.
Yeah, I tried reading one of the books. I think maybe Chamber of Secrets. And
that's one of the more childy ones, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the appeal, especially in the writing. But, I mean, like I said, I never really followed the books, so I can't really say anything about Rowling's work, her trajectory as an author here. But I mean, it is kind of reflected in the way that the franchise came out.
Right. I would say that book 4 on is really where the mature tone in the books sets in, up to the point where I was reading book 6, which is actually kind of gets a little bit scarier than book 3, Prisoner of Azkaban. That was the Half-Blood Prince, and I was realizing like this. I mean, it straight up had like zombies and shit in it. I mean, this is not for children.
No, I mean, can you imagine if they did like a straight horror movie set in the Harry Potter universe?
That would be awesome.
I mean, like they were originally going to do that with the X-Men universe with New Mutants. That was supposed to be kind of a
badass.
And recently, and this happened as a result of Snyder Cut, that movie that James Wan was going to do called The Trench. It was going to be a horror movie set in the Aquaman universe, like that whole storyline.
Yeah.
I mean, that got canceled recently, unfortunately.
Damn.
And Ava DuVernay's DC movie also.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I don't know why Snyder Cut would have fucked any of that up. They could have tied it to the Snyderverse somehow. I mean, these movies are still in like pre-production from what I understand.
They could have been rewritten to fit continuity if they want to go with canonizing the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, which I mean, also recently we'll also go ahead and bring this up. Restore the Snyderverse. The hashtag
Restore the Snyderverse.
Hashtag Restore the Snyderverse. It got over 1 million tweets in like one day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like well over 1 million. That's pretty significant, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I don't really think that Snyder's the greatest filmmaker in the world, but yeah, I can get behind Restore the Snyderverse.
Yeah, honestly. I think respect his vision, you know? Let him put the work out that he wanted to produce. And if you want to hear more about that, check out our review on the Snyder Cut at the Movies edition.
Our At the Movies edition on the Snyder Cut is pretty awesome, I think.
We got that out with pretty good timing, too.
And without a whole lot of spoilers.
Yeah, it's a spoiler-free review, so check that out if you haven't. I mean, by this point, pretty much everyone's watched it, but...
Yeah, and by this point, everybody's released reviews with spoilers, so maybe we need to do that soon?
Maybe. But we're happy to go into spoilers for Prisoner of Azkaban, because that's a movie from 2006.
Yeah, it's been around for a little while.
We've all read the books or watched the movies. Between the two of them, I mean, everyone's done...
Yeah, I really like how the story just comes back around to Scabbers.
Dude.
Peter Pettigrew. That was a really interesting twist, actually.
Yeah, and I like what they did with Timothy Spall, the actor, with making him look extremely rat-like.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's been a rat for so long that he just started to naturally kind of form those type of features after a while.
Yeah, and if you read his description in the books, I mean, that's kind of hard to visualize on screen, and I think that they've done an excellent job with it, because he does appear like someone who's been stuck as a rat for 12 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 12 years, that's a long time to be stuck in any type of form like that, I would imagine. So,
They very briefly bring up the animagus concept, by the way.
Yeah.
That was a point that was delved more into in the book. I mean, that was something that Lupin actually would talk to them about, and not Lupin, McGonagall. There was a whole transfiguration lesson on that.
Oh, I see. And that was cut from the movie, obviously.
That was cut because this is the first movie where the book was significantly longer, and then they really had to fast track and skip out a lot of like the school lessons and things like that of more of the day-to-day life in order to keep the focus on the story and on the overall narrative.
Exactly. And I really, really, really like the way that they completely subverted who the actual antagonists were. Like, Sirius Black is kind of, shown as this, foreboding figure almost on the same level as he who shall not be named. You know who. I mean, he's seen as this really, really, dark and, fucked up figure. I mean, enough to have the goddamn Dementors, patrolling around fucking Hogwarts at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And he comes across as very menacing and very threatening on screen. Do you like how that scene was written ambiguously so that you're looking at Sirius Black and you think that maybe Lupin has betrayed?
Yeah, that's an excellent subversion right there. You think that this is a betrayal that's going down. You think that Black is the actual, villain here and is about to kill Harry. But no, they were there for Pettigrew.
There was the big reveal. And so that's where the movie's like completely shifts around. And then you think you're at the end of the movie, and then there's a whole time travel sequence, which doubles over that and actually gets into some metaphysics that are consistent with time travel fiction. Yeah. So, I think I've talked about this on another podcast before, but there are basically 3 categories in time travel fiction. You have mutable time travel, which is subject to the grandfather paradox. Think like Back to the Future or Hot Tub Time Machine. You've got immutable time travel or the causal loop, and that's what's being used here. It's also featured in the Weeping Angels episode of Doctor Who. And then there is, of course, parallel reality time travel, which is every time you go back in time, you create an alternate reality, thus preserving the original timeline. But this is a causal loop or a bootstrap paradox.
Yeah. And you can see how that is during the first part of the movie. I mean, you see some subtle little moments that allude to that, namely Hermione's sudden appearance in certain classes out of nowhere.
Yes, that's set up in advance, and that's all set up in the book. What I like about what Cuaron did with the time turner scene at the end of the movie is that not only are we left with, the overall causal loop, understanding that Harry ended up saving himself, but we also are left with all these little just details in the scene that hammer point the home early on that, of course, the time travel is a causal loop, and that what they are doing is what they always did with Hermione throwing the rock at herself.
Yeah, which I'm sure some people probably kind of saw that coming a little bit, maybe. Yeah. With that,
it plants the seeds in,
yeah,
and it makes it more digestible for a movie watcher.
Yeah, and then the whole scenario where Harry saves himself. I mean, that was kind of brilliant because the whole spirit animal thing,
the Patronus, yeah,
the Patronus. Yeah, I mean, that turns out to look like his dad's Patronus to him, but in fact, it is his own Patronus.
Yes.
I mean, it was just passed on to him from his dad.
And that's something that wasn't actually revealed in the movie, was the fact that his dad's Patronus was a stag, or the fact that his dad was an animagus. In fact, the explicit connection between the Marauders map and Harry's dad is not made clear in the movie.
Actually, no, it's not. You're right. I mean, I kind of feel like it was maybe alluded to a little bit.
It's alluded to, and later movies just kind of accept it. They start using the name Wormtail for Pettigrew and Pad for Sirius. But just in case you missed that. So basically, in the book, and in the movie as well, it's just not clearly told to you because they didn't have enough time for it. But basically, Harry's dad, James, Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew were friends, and actually bullies of Snape, as we find out later in Order of the Phoenix. But they were friends, and they were all animaguses, with the exception of Lupin, of course, being a werewolf. And they were Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Bronx. They created the Marauders map.
Yeah, the Marauders map itself... that is an interesting little MacGuffin that's brought in, which is what ultimately reveals Pettigrew's actual presence at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what leads to his capture.
Right. So with Harry seeing Peter Pettigrew's name on the map is really what kicks those events into motion, because then Lupin takes the map from him, and Lupin, who is one of the original creators of the map,
yeah,
and understands how it works, sees Peter Pettigrew's name, and then he is aware of Sirius Black's innocence.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really shitty what Pettigrew did to his friends, man. Really shitty. What
fuck
he did,
that guy.
What he did is Sirius, man. I mean, it's amazing how they really paint Sirius in such a really unflattering light. Like, for instance, his animated wanted poster. Yes. I mean, he looks like he's deranged. He's constantly laughing, like about to lash out and everything. He looks like a vicious animal, and it's like, that's just not the fucking way he actually is.
Ministry propaganda, man.
Ministry propaganda, exactly. Goddamn Ministry of Magic. Fuck.
Fuck the Minister of Magic. Fuck Cornelius Fudge.
That motherfucker. Just like a fucking politician. God damn it.
Yeah, he's honestly like fucking Ted Cruz.
Oh. Are we really going to have to bring him up?
No, we're not.
Please don't bring him up. That motherfucker.
Alrighty, so that is actually a really interesting transpiring of events in the movie, because at the end we see Lupin kind of appear to betray the trio, but in fact he's aware of Sirius's innocence, and then everything is revealed to you. And I just really think that was brilliant how that was done.
Yeah, I mean, it's excellent writing. It's actually an excellent directing, you know, and how the whole scene is shot. It's in a very small room that this all occurs, honestly. It's not a showdown that happens in, like, a big, like, part of Hogwarts.
No, it's the inside of the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah, and it's really, really kind of foreboding. Like, first you see Sirius Black, and you're just like, oh, shit. Shit's about to go down. It's like, Gary Oldman's in the house now.
And he acts crazy, so it makes you think that he's actually bad, that he's bad news, because he's been locked up for 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years in prison, probably even in isolation or solitary or whatever. I mean, yeah, that's going to fuck with somebody's mind, invariably.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, he probably is a little kind of, you know, off his kilter, but not enough to not be able to deduce, you know, where Peter is and to want to kill him and everything, you know?
No, and also Sirius, he's kind of maintaining his composure. And you see that, and after the excitement is over, Sirius kind of shows his softer personality, which is the personality that he'll adopt later when he appears in Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix. And we're kind of seeing Sirius as he was. And even after all this time, he still says, you know, I would have rather died than betray my friends.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a real injustice what happens to him. Like 12 years in a fucking prison like Azkaban. I mean, in wizard prison. Like, wow.
And he offers to, he's Harry's godfather, so he offers to have Harry come live with him, and that never comes to pass. He's still on the run as of book 4, and then he, spoiler alert, dies at the end of book 5.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah, so, I mean, Harry never gets the opportunity to take him up on that, and he has to continue living with his abusive aunt and uncle.
Man, fuck those fucking people, goddammit.
You know what, though? Dudley has a redemption moment, and I'm so sad to see that it was cut out of Deathly Hallows Part 1, because there actually is a deleted scene. It was filmed. The whole, like, what does Dudley tell him at the end? He says, I don't think you're a waste of space. And I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, that was actually really cool, and I have no idea why they cut that from the movie. I mean, why not give them a little bit of a redemption?
Right?
I mean, why not?
Well, Vernon isn't, and fuck Vernon, honestly.
Oh, yeah, Vernon, yeah, no, fuck that guy.
But according to JK, Harry and Dudley were on Christmas card terms, and their families visited each other occasionally.
Really? No kidding.
So they actually kept in touch, and, you know, they were just kind of extended family.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
I doubt that Vernon and Petunia ever had any interactions with Harry's children.
Probably not. I would imagine not. I mean, there is a blood relation there, right? I mean, is there?
Yeah. So Petunia is Harry's mom, Lily's sister.
Oh, okay. I see.
And Vernon's just the asshole that married her.
Oh, god damn it. Isn't it fucked up how it works out that way?
Played brilliantly by Richard Griffith, though.
Oh yeah, I mean he really just encapsulates that character, like how pathetic he is, how little he can be.
Yes.
You know, I mean, yeah, he's a pathetic character, but from what I understand, there is that whole fan theory, or I think it's actually canon that because Harry is a Horcrux, it might be because of the magic that's involved there.
That makes a lot of sense,
that
actually.
they act that way.
And if that hasn't been canonized or directly stated by J.K. Rowling, it's my headcanon.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I mean, they actually were decent people, but because Harry's a Horcrux, it just brought out the worst in them.
Well, maybe they were not so decent people, but made worse.
Yeah, maybe they were just kind of, normal, more or less, just, they have their good moments. Sometimes they have their bad moments, but, it just kind of became amplified when Harry got into the household.
That actually makes so much sense. And I think you told me that before.
Yeah.
But also in this film, we have the role of Professor Dumbledore passed on to Michael Gambon after Richard Harris's death.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like, Richard Harris, his Dumbledore was a lot more understated. It was a lot more gentle in a way.
Very different portrayal. In fact,
yeah.
Gambon did that on purpose. He didn't want to portray the character as Richard Harris did. He wanted to do his own interpretation of the character while remaining true to the source material as much as possible. But they're still very different characters. And so I guess the portrayal by Richard Harris is treated with a lot of respect in that way. For continuity reasons, it doesn't make as much sense, but it's a hand wave.
Invariably.
We live in a fucking magical world where Professor Flitwick suddenly changed his appearance as well in this film. So, but yeah, no, Michael Gambon actually does a great job. I mean, he portrays Dumbledore until the end of the film series, and he does later, have the capacity to have some of those more gentle moments, and perhaps it was kind of necessary because I'm trying to look at the more hard ass moments of Dumbledore. When he actually gets like stone cold. And I'm trying to wonder if Richard Harris could have even portrayed that, especially at his age.
Probably not. I mean, that required a level of intensity that, as far as I'm concerned, is almost like Ian McKellen as Gandalf a little bit.
By the way, Ian McKellen, there were rumors that he was offered the role, but evidently Richard Harris actually called Ian McKellen a dreadful actor, so he felt that it was inappropriate. Also, he was already playing Gandalf, so...
Yeah, it would be a little much if he was playing both of those characters that are kind of similar,
Exactly.
Yeah, that I could see how that would be a little confusing.
It's confusing enough as it is for casual people.
Yeah, definitely.
Turn to page 394.
Hey guys, why the long faces?
Who is that? That man?
He's a murderer. Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban prison.
Sirius Black is the reason the Potters are dead.
And now he wants to finish what he started.
I want you to swear to me you won't go looking for Black.
Why would I go looking for someone who wants to kill me?
Harry Potter.
There's something moving out there.
It was a Dementor, one of the guards of Azkaban, searching the train for Sirius Black.
It is not in the nature of a Dementor to be forgiving.
I hope he finds me. Because when he does, I'm going to be ready.
You must look beyond.
Loathsome, evil little cockroach! Oh, that felt good.
Expecto Patronum!
I think maybe we can go ahead and start getting to our final thoughts now. I mean, go ahead and go off, Ash. What are your final thoughts on Prisoner of Azkaban and Harry Potter as a whole?
Oh, man. You know, regardless of other things, Harry Potter remains to this day my favorite book franchise. And yes, I know, go read another book. I get it, but it's what I grew up with, and I haven't really felt the motivation to read anything since, nor do I have the time in my life to dedicate to book reading at this time. So
I don't think many of us do, honestly.
Man, but I would love to do a book podcast. If I ever had more time to just podcast and make that my career, I would spend more time on things like that. But overall, the Harry Potter film franchise is very near and dear to my heart. The book franchises, I'd love to go back and reread the novels sometime. I really would. And for what it's worth, I'm even enjoying the Fantastic Beasts films. There's just not much to say about them.
I mean, it seems like an interesting way to continue the universe.
I'm glad that they did it, because that's what I've always said is the Cursed Child thing was stupid. We don't even need to revisit Harry's family. And I said that before Cursed Child came out. I was like, we don't even need to revisit Harry's family. Leave Harry's family alone and just explore this giant universe you fucking built.
Exactly. You know, it's kind of like the extended universe with Star Wars a little bit. There's so many different stories that could be told in this universe with these different characters, these different factions. Like maybe even get into like the politics of the Ministry of Magic a little more.
The Fantastic Beasts films kind of do a little bit. So I actually appreciate some of what's done, and we get a look at a younger Dumbledore portrayed by Jude Law.
Ooh, no kidding.
Yeah. But in any case, Prisoner of Azkaban, I think, is one of the most artistic films, if not the most artistic film in the series. And the most uniquely directed for sure. And in my opinion, the highest quality film, just looking at everything across the board.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is great as a standalone movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great as an Alphonso Cuaron movie. I mean, it definitely is something that stands up to something like Roma, I would at least imagine, since I haven't seen it. But, I mean, it makes me excited to see those movies now. Because, I mean, if that's what he could do with something like Harry Potter, something that mainstream, I mean, what could he do with other IPs?
Imagine, like, the MCU.
Oh, man, I could only dare to think.
I mean, and with us getting Sam Raimi in the MCU.
Yeah, that's a huge fucking thing right there. And, you know, I mean, you also have Taika Waititi and whatnot.
Oh, fuck yeah. I'm so excited
James
about Phase
Gunn.
4.
I mean, I think that this is definitely the type of movie that out of this franchise I would probably buy for my collection, just because it's something that actually makes a contribution to cinema and to the franchise itself.
Oh, there you go. It's vegan approved.
It's vegan approved. God damn it.
Yeah, well said. Well, what's coming up next with Collateral Cinema?
We actually have a lot coming up. We have our 420 episode coming up, and we are doing Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Hopefully we can have Chaz from Trial by Error on that episode. I need to still hit him up. Chaz, if you're listening to this, hit me up, buddy. We need to set some things up.
Following that, later this month, we are doing we were doing a collaboration between Collateral Cinema and Collateral Gaming. We're going to talk about the new Mortal Kombat film that's coming out later this month. And we're also going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 11, and we're even going to have a bonus round episode out.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the first 4 Mortal Kombat games, like especially the arcade versions, the different versions that were released on consoles, and kind of how they stand up after all these years. So, yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, I have played that franchise for many, many years, and it brought back a lot of great memories, like doing the Mortal Kombat episode that we did for the 90s movie. And this movie looks like it is going to be fucking amazing. So,
yes, sir.
Fuck yeah. Can't wait. An R-rated Mortal Kombat is what we need in the world right now. But also, we will be doing The Toxic Avenger very soon. That is going to be our first official Troma movie. It's not the first time we've reviewed or tried to look at Troma films, but this is like the main, like, founding building block of the Tromaverse right there, is Toxie. So
Yeah, my first appearance on this podcast, my debut, other than the commentary in the room, was on Hectic Knife. So this really brings me back.
Yeah, kind of coming full circle a little bit, right?
Coming full circle, exactly. And I'm excited to talk about more of the Traumaverse. And we're going to try to feature Michael Cornwell as well.
Yeah, we've been trying to get him on the show for a long time. He doesn't do his podcast anymore, but he agreed to come on the show, talk about this movie. I mean, it's definitely up his alley. So, I mean, we're looking forward to having him on there. So look for those episodes. Look for a new director's cut coming soon. We're going to we might have some wrestling-related movie content coming out on that, especially, with WrestleMania coming up and with the Hall of Fame inductions coming up. Like, especially, the Big Red Machine Kane, he's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so we might be doing the See No Evil movies.
Okay.
We might do a little review of that and maybe do some top 5 wrestlers in movies or something like that. I don't know what the official title will be, but it'll be something along that line.
And guys, it's April. It's the month of April. It's 420 month. So, we're going to be blazing it all month. Excited about the 420 special. On Collateral Gaming, we're going to be doing a 420 special on Minecraft as well as the aforementioned Mortal Kombat collab. And then also check out our recent Part 1 and Part 2 of Metroid Fusion.
Yes, and also check out our new feature on the Director's Cut every other episode where we're going to be doing film commentaries for free. Just kind of to show everybody what we do on our Patreon content. We did Second Glance recently, and that is free on our feed. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. And the next movie we're going to be doing is, of course, The Buttercream Gang.
Yes! Hell yeah!
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. We love The Buttercream Gang. It's so awesome. It's fucking amazing movie. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
I am really excited about that. I can't wait. And if you like that and you want some more film commentaries, we also have our Patreon. We have, $1 and $5 tiers. And Collateral Gaming is on Patreon as well, where we do our Let's Play video game commentaries. I don't really think there's much more for us to bullshit about, huh?
Not really. Not a whole lot. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you get your podcasts.
Yes, sir. And you can hit us up on our social media channels. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We all have personal accounts as well. So if you like what you hear, let us know. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or feedback on your platform of choice.
Yeah, and once again, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Once again. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and wind this episode down. I'm Beau Maddox.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And this was Collateral Cinema. And you're a wizard, Harry.
Mischief managed.
God damn it.
Collateral Cinema is an L Company production. All music and movie clips are owned by the respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.